So what we have here is a solar charge mobile application, which I developed along with my colleagues at Georgia Tech. So user logs into the application, and each user has a wallet account in the application, which shows the user's solar coin balance. So now, as you can see, this is showing the user's solar coin balance. So user's name, email, blockchain address, the amount the user has paid, and the solar coin balance is shown. Next, if a user wants to charge any device, user scans a QR code, or either scans a QR code or enters the address of the charging station manually. So each charging station has a unique ID, which can be entered manually, or you can scan a QR code. So let's say a user scans the QR code. So here we scan the QR code. And once the QR code is scanned, the application will retrieve the details of the charging station from the smart contract. Since each charging station is registered with the smart contract, we have the station ID, location, and the rate per minute in solar coins. It is displayed to the user. So for charging any device, we have to pay 10 solar coins per minute. And then the user specifies the number of minutes to charge. So let's say user wants to charge the device for 1 minute, and then user pays the charging station. So it shows it will charge user 10 solar coins and then confirms the transaction. So after the user confirms the transaction, it is sent to the blockchain network. It is processed and mined on the network. So this part of the demo, it shows the mobile application. Now let's look at the demo of the actual device. So this is the demo of the actual device. So what we have here is we have a BeagleBone Black device, a relay module, universal plug. It is monitoring the status of contract. Now once a user makes a payment, see that this got activated. The relay module got activated and the connected plug got activated. Now user can plug in the device and charge it. So it will remain active for a certain duration, and now it got deactivated. So what is the benefit of setting up such a system using blockchain, and how does it differ from a centralized system? So this system differs from any centralized system because we have these charging stations are deployed in a fully decentralized manner. Each charging station has its own account. Users are paying directly to the charging station's account, unless unlike a centralized system where a user has to make payment to through a payment gateway to a company's bank account or a company's wallet account. Here there is no centralized authority involved. The charging stations are fully autonomous in nature. So we'll look at some implementation details. So before that, I would like to discuss one more important aspect of blockchain network types. So as we see here, there are two dimensions. The blockchain networks either they can be permissioned or permissionless, or they can on the other dimension we have public and private.
That's something interesting, right? And we'll get more into it as we progress forward. And yeah, so I think what I'll focus in this. So I was thinking maybe we'll talk about the cryptography aspect of things as well, or some. But we'll focus first. I think we might not have enough time to cover the cryptocurrency aspect of only things. So we'll focus on that and focus on Bitcoin white paper and all these problems. And just a side note is that the Bitcoin ecosystem, the crypto ecosystem, has so much research and so many interesting people And it's not just the Bitcoin white paper or the Ethereum white paper that you see. Even the Bitcoin white paper was work of Satoshi Nakamoto, right? It was work of anonymous person or a group of individuals, but it still didn't mention all these things that have come out from the community. It's all open source work that the community has done. And doesn't mention various things like, it doesn't mention the 21 million coin cap. It doesn't mention multi signatures. That is a very interesting multi transaction. That's a good way to secure your bitcoins. Even the Bitcoin white 10-minute block time. There's so many things that are still not part of the white paper, right? It was work of as anonymous person or a group of individuals, but it still didn't mention all these things that have come out from the community, other blog or so on. Um, yeah. So I'll just skip these slides for now. But essentially, the cryptography aspect of things is, I think most of the people are quite technical. So most people understand what are hash functions, what's how the encryption decryption work. Um, and yeah, he writes. He has a very good YouTube channel as well. You can check that out. But if you really want to understand, he has this Mastering Bitcoin book, which is open source. You can read it on GitHub. All the chapters are in the textual format. You can read that, or you can even buy the book. It's available in hard copy. So yeah. So yeah, I'll just briefly talk about the history of Bitcoin and the some. I'll just walk through the white paper as well. And so before Bitcoin, there was, as I mentioned before as well, there were various attempts at creating this decentralized currency in which no one has a power, no central person or company has a power over its say monetary supply, or has a power to block transactions and so on. And so there was DigiCash, which was a company started by David Shom, and that was started in 1998 during the internet boom, the first internet boom before the crash in 2000. So many people, even PayPal was actually working on. Um, and some what happened in a gist, what happened to most of these projects was that they had some central point of failure. Some of them were not able to solve, say, double spending problem. Then some of them didn't have a good mining algorithm, how the currency gets in, how the new currency is created, um, and so on and so forth. And even some of them actually got, some of the founders of these companies or of these cryptocurrencies got arrested by the government, because the government doesn't like anyone to create a new currency, right? Like that's if that's a really big power that they have, that they don't want to give, is the power of currency to the people, because they can tax people. That's how essentially the governments work, and having their own currency, they can go to wars. They can just print their own money, right? Maybe they can say, okay, we want to go to war with a country, and they can print money and go to war with that country, and that money printed will be just accounted as spending for the war. And we had DigiCash, then we had PayPal. Even the PayPal team, which now is working on various things. We have Elon Musk, was one of the co-founders of PayPal. Then Peter Thiel was one of the co-founders of PayPal. Um, they were also thinking of creating their own bank, creating their own e-money, and they had launched this e-gold operation as well. But all of these, the common theme is again that they essentially, either they had a technical flaw or they got shut down by the government, which essentially means they had a technical flaw to an extent, because the goal is that no one can shut you down. That's how the technology of the cryptocurrency should be like. Um, yeah. And we had also BitGold. So Nick Szabo, who many believe is Satoshi Nakamoto, the creator of Bitcoin, he had created BitGold. I highly recommend to just check out his blog. It's called Unenumerated. If you just look Google search Nick Szabo blog, you'll find that he has been writing about this. So he was the one who had came up with his own proof of work system, which Bitcoin's mining process uses. Um, yeah, and uh, he had this project called BitGold, which is quite similar to Bitcoin. And many believe he was Satoshi, but he has a very interesting background in the sense that he has a lawyer. Has background in law. He has background in mathematics, computer science, but he was not much of a developer, as in like he was more on research side of things, and that's one of the reasons that BitGold it didn't have that from what I remember that much of a code base compared to say Bitcoin. Um, yeah, so that, and actually most of you know about smart contracts. So Nick Szabo was the person who invented the concept of smart contracts. So he is quite he has various contributions in the blockchain and the crypto industry. And we also had Hashcash. So Adam Back, who is now the founder of Blockstream, which is a company that hires, which has one of the most numbers of people who were as their employee who are working on Bitcoin's core code base. So he also had worked on Hashcash, and Hashcash is used as a proof of work algorithm in Bitcoin as well. And in fact, I think in the Bitcoin's white paper, there is a reference for Adam Back's Hashcash as well. So yeah, I'll just walk through this. I know this is not that technical, but I think having a history knowledge of the history is really beneficial. You understand why people are building on things. Uh, there's this site called SatoshiNakamoto.me, in which you can look at various posts that Satoshi wrote. So many believe no one knows who Satoshi Nakamoto is till date. My guess is, and what most people believe is, it might be Hal Finney. He is a cryptographer. He was a developer, and he was the first person that Satoshi sent a transaction to, and he actually had a disease, and he that paralyzed him. So, and when he had this disease and he got paralyzed, that's around the time when Satoshi Nakamoto stopped communicating in various forums, Bitcoin forums. And so many believe it might be Hal Finney, and Hal Finney has died now, so no one really knows. And it's still most, or some people believe it might actually be a group of people. But in any case, you can go to SatoshiNakamoto.me and you can see various platforms on which Satoshi interacted. So we had this Bitcoin Talk forum in which the Bitcoin community used to come and discuss. It was a Bitcoin focused forum, and you can see all these communications of Satoshi. And we had this SourceForge mailing list in which Satoshi used to. That was the original mailing list of the cypherpunks. Um, so yeah, you can check this out. It's quite interesting. And yeah, this link is the one in which so this is November 1, 2008, in which Satoshi dropped the Bitcoin eCash P2P eCash paper, and the paper right now is available on bitcoin.org site. But essentially that's what he did, and he posted this as under his name Satoshi Nakamoto. And back then people were not that they were not, it was just an open source project. That's how it started off, and no one was like, okay, this is Bitcoin. This is so revolutionary. Many people in this cryptographers mailing list actually doubted Bitcoin's technical architecture and so on and so forth. So yeah, that's how it started. Yeah, and some of the early developers that actually contributed to Bitcoin's code were Gavin Andreessen and Hal Finney, and they were the ones that extensively communicated with Satoshi over email. And you can look at various Bitcoin codes contributors right now on this Bitcoin core website. And Gavin Andreessen is still alive. Hal Finney is not alive anymore, but Gavin Andreessen is still, he's I think part of the MIT Digital Currency Initiative these days. He isn't contributing that much, but still he is quite active on Twitter, and you can have a chat with him if you want. Um, yeah. So, and essentially, Bitcoin. It was not only Satoshi that developed it. Satoshi was just developed in the most of the initial code that was written in C++, and other people downloaded that and they pushed their own commits. You can go to GitHub and you can actually see the history of various commits. And it was an open source initiative, and many it was not the work of one person. There were dozens of people involved. um, yeah. So yeah, I'll just walk through some of how Bitcoin transactions work. um, we have this system of in which Bitcoin uses the model. The model is called UTXO, unspent transaction output. Essentially, what happens is how new Bitcoins get generated, and maybe we can look at the white paper as well. I think most of you might have read it already, but still worth going through it once. And so most how do new Bitcoins come in supply, right? So what happens is people essentially uh, Bitcoin is it uses proof of work algorithm, and what essentially people are doing is they are trying to generate these new blocks, and they are as they're generating these new blocks, they have to guess a certain number, and that if they guess that number, they'll be able to, and they send that information that okay, we found this hash, and if that, and they communicate it throughout the network, and if most people verify it, then it sort of gets accepted and people start working on the next block. And what the rewarder, the person who mines that block, that person gets Bitcoin, and he can then maybe say send use those Bitcoins to buy pizza, or use anything. And that's how essentially new Bitcoins come in supply. Initially the block reward was 50 Bitcoins, and right now it's there was a recent halvening. So I think so it got from 50 to 25 in the first halvening. In the second halvening, it went to 25 to 12.5, and now the third halvening that happened recently, it has gone to 6.25. So it's an infinite GP basically. And if you try to solve this infinite GP, you'll get that if you do essentially the R is 1 by 2. So the formula is times 1 minus 1 by R. So times 1 minus 1 by 2, which is half. And if you solve this out, you'll see that you'll get 21 million Bitcoins. And essentially, the why 21 comes is because the halvening happens after 210,000 blocks. So that's where the 21 is coming from. And 210,000 blocks multiplied by say 50 plus 210,000 blocks multiplied by 25 plus 210,000 blocks multiplied by 12.5, and so on. If you add that up, that will you'll get that sum to be 21 million. So that's how new Bitcoins come in supply. And what essentially happens is the person who, say, the miner who gets those Bitcoins, he creates a he creates a new transaction, and that transaction, um, so say I have 50 Bitcoins, a transaction worth 50 Bitcoins, and I want to pay you 1 Bitcoin. So what would happen is I will create a transaction in which I send 49 bitcoins back to myself and 1 bitcoin to you. So that's essentially what's happening here. So say if I wanted to send, so here in this example we have, let me go on presentation mode. So we have this, say I want to, I have this point, I have a transaction output worth zero point 0.1 BTC, and I want to send someone 0.015 BTC. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll send that person 0.015 BTC, and I'll spend the remaining change back to myself. And this amounts to 0.005 and not zero point 0.1 BTC, and that's because the remaining amount is used to pay the miners, the transaction fees to pay the miners. So the incentive for miners to include your transactions is that they earn these transaction fees, right? That's why, and we have seen certain scenarios in which we get empty blocks. Sometimes what happens is, like, say a block got mined, and a miner who started say we block number 10 got mined, and other people started working on block number 11, right? And they found block 11 very fast. Like they were like, okay, they just hit the number that was required uh, at the first code, for example. So what happens in that scenario is, the miners, they just they just send that empty block without looking at the transactions that are pending in the network. They just send that empty block to the others, that okay, we have mined this block. So sometimes we do get empty blocks as well, but the Bitcoin's model is designed in such a way that miners have an incentive to include your transactions. um, yeah, so that's how this system works. And I think most news people, that's essentially in the Bitcoin white paper. That's essentially how they are explaining the transactions flow that I sort of explained. It's yeah. Um, Proof of work, again. I think most of you might know it, but essentially it's one CPU, one vote, and anyone can join a network. They just need to have a computer. Right now, initially people were mining using their CPUs, like say your laptops you have currently, but now the difficulty has increased so much that you can't mine any Bitcoin with your computers. You need to have, we have these mining pools that are dedicated to mining bitcoins. It's a very large, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, and most of these mining pools are actually in China. And what we have is they have these they combine computing power. They have very large computers that are just guessing and trying to mine blocks, and they combine this computing power, and they have a chance of mining bitcoins more than a normal person. And essentially, how the if one question is like, okay, how does the difficulty actually increase, right? Like how has how does the protocol itself compute that uh, to increase the difficulty with time? So how it checks that is within the protocol. There is a it checks that okay, how many blocks are getting mined per hour, or there's certain I don't remember the exact check, but it's, you can assume that it checks that how many blocks are getting mined per hour. And if say, like say in 1 minute 10 blocks get mined, right? Like, or in 1 hour we were used to mine, the expected number was 10, that should have been mined in 1 hour, but instead of 10 we have 100 blocks that got mined. So what would happen is, the protocol thinks, okay, so we have this 100 blocks that are getting mined, so we need to adjust this difficulty uh, back, increase the difficulty so that the uh, the the number comes back to 10, right? The number comes back to 10 blocks per 1 hour. And it's not that the difficulty always increases, it sometimes decreases as well. Like say, Instead of 10 blocks getting mined in 1 hour, if say 5 blocks get mined in 1 hour, then the network the it essentially sees, okay, the computing power that is in the network is not that high, so we need to reduce the difficulty. So yeah, that's on the difficulty aspect of things. um and for the node, new transactions are broadcast to all nodes. This is again very basic stuff. Again, about the incentives. The incentive is to get Bitcoin rewards. That's why miners are mining blocks. Um, yeah, and just talking about Bitcoin's privacy model, I think this is also something interesting, right? Like people say that um, Bitcoin and there's some cryptocurrencies that are focused on privacy, right? So people say that Bitcoin is private, or some people say like what the Indian government was saying was, this no one can track it and so on. But Bitcoin's network, the I read a research done by UK's bank, and yeah, and they were essentially, they listed down from one to from 20 or something, the mode of transactions used for terrorist financing, right? Like that's what, like, the Indian government was saying, and various other governments were saying that, okay, Bitcoin and these cryptocurrency are used for terrorist financing. um, but Bitcoin actually was not number one. It was 10th or 11th on the list, and cash was actually quite above on that list. And the reason is Bitcoin is not that private. You can see on the Bitcoin network all the transactions, right? You can see these. You can look at the block. You can say, okay, this. You can say, okay, this was the transactions. You can look at all the transactions, and you can look at all these addresses. Okay, this address sent this much amount to this address, and so on and so forth. And like, say, if you even catch one person on that address, or you catch one IP on that whole chain, right? Like, say, I can even show you on this Explorer. If you look at this blockchain explorer, you can look at the whole chain, right? Like, say, this is how this Bitcoin got generated by the mining pool, and this has been the history of this Bitcoin, or this transaction. So even if you catch like one person in the middle, or one IP, you can trace everything. If the market cap increased by, say, it went up to till gold's size, it won't be that volatile. So if, say, right now someone buys $100 million worth of Bitcoin, since the market cap isn't that big, we get this in wide fluctuations in price. But if the market cap increases, and if the adoption of Bitcoin continues to increase, the volatility will decrease. So that's as simple as that. Um, and in fact, in there are some stable coins, there are some cryptocurrencies that are back to $1, right? So for my example, when I did my internship in a German company, what I used was I used to accept payments in Tether. So this Tether, I don't recommend it. I in fact recommend to use either DAI, that is another. These are called stable coins, and if you look at the value of these coins, so if you look at the Tether, if you look at the price, it's $0.99, right? If and I'll just show you another stable coin. So if you look at this USD coin, this is run by a company called Circle, which is backed by Goldman Sachs, and Coinbase also is I think an investor. Um, so I would actually recommend this one. So if you look at this, the value is again $0.99, right? So it's almost $1. If you look at yeah, this coin Paxos, again $0.99. So these are stable coins. So what you can do is, you can, if say you receive payment in Bitcoin, you go to an exchange, you trade the stable coin, that Bitcoin to the stable coin, and then the value of this stable coin will always be $1. dollars. So and this the like how it remains $1 is like for these centralized stable coins, the company, say for circles like the Goldman Sachs company, they claim that they have this much amount of dollars in their bank accounts. So essentially, it's just it's a cryptocurrency in a sense that it's it's an ERC20 token. It's a token built on top of Ethereum, and you can trade it very easily on exchanges. So that's the use of it. So you can't trade Bitcoin that easily with something that is on a bank account, right? You can trade very easily within the blockchain. So this is an ERC20 token. Most of them are ERC20 tokens, which are basically Ethereum tokens, and the value of them is always $1. So people say, okay, it's volatile. I don't want to accept payments in crypto or and stuff like that. But you can in fact accept payment in these stable coins, or you can accept payments in Bitcoin, and you can go to an exchange. It's a very simple process. You can convert it to a stable coin, and you can just store that value in that stable coin. Um, so yeah, that's also something that people do, and in fact, this trend is increasing quite as well, because most of the currencies. So what people as well are doing right now is like, if I know people who are buying USD coin or these stable coins, because the value of various currencies right now of various countries is falling in comparison to dollar. So people are buying dollar through exchanges, through essentially the stable coin, right? They are just holding on to this stable coin, and that the value of this always remains to $1. And yeah, if they are beating out the decrease in value of their local currency. Um, so yeah, that's also something interesting. And there is this coin called DAI, yeah, multi-collateral DAI. This is a decentralized stablecoin. So it has a very interesting mechanism, which I highly recommend to read about. DAI, DAI, and Maker, Maker, which is a company behind this DAI, and which actually is they have this the Maker token is used to stabilize the value of this DAI to $1. So you can in fact keep your coins in DAI as well. Um, but I personally would recommend USDC, because it's yeah, it's Goldman Sachs and a couple of banks. They are behind that, and they in fact have they do audits and stuff like that. So they have the US dollar in the bank account. Some stable coins claim that they have US dollar, but they don't have the US dollar in their bank. So yeah, that's about it. I think about the cryptocurrency industry. In the next talk, we'll talk about some of the interesting applications, some of these projects. We'll look at them. What's interesting happening in the crypto industry in terms of like research or company startups that are coming out, and stuff like that. So yeah, if you have any questions, hopefully you can ask them right now, and I'll just stop sharing my screen. Yeah, if you have any questions. I'm looking at the chat. Maybe. Hello. Yeah. Okay. So I'm just reading the question. Sorry. Okay. Let's see. What if when the more than one mine the block at the same time? Okay. So this one question is, what if when more than one miners mine the block at the same time? So this happens quite a lot, right? So like say if you have two miners that mine a block, what would happen is so this is concept of the true chain in Bitcoin. The correct chain is the longest chain in Bitcoin. So like say if I mine a block and if say Poonam ma'am mines a block, and if say other blocks that get mined. So like say I was on block number, I mined block 5, Poonam ma'am also mined block 5. Then and we both propagated that, right? We both satisfied the criteria of the hash that was to be mined. Maybe it was different hashes, but it satisfied the criteria. Um, and what would happen? What would happen in this scenario? So everyone can see, okay, maybe I mined this block and Poonam and both of us are correct. But people, for the next block that is going to get mined, you have a choice to either build on top of continue block mined by Poonam ma'am, build the chain on top of that, or build the chain on top of my block, right? So that's you have this option. So say if you decide to build the chain, if Poonam ma'am's chain was had block 5, it then got mine block number 6, block number 7, and my chain only had block number 5, right? So and was say and people were not able to mine another block on my chain. For some reason, maybe Poonam ma'am is more popular, so you were like, okay, I will mine a block on ahead on her chain. Then the longest, so for the next miner that is joining, his incentive, he wants the correct chain is the longest chain, right? So he have an incentive. He was like, he looked at, okay, we have these two chains. One is still block number 7, one is still block number 5. So he like, okay, why should I mine on top of the smaller chain? He has an incentive to mine on top of the longer chain, right? Because he is spending this computation power, and if say he mines on top of my chain, his value is might get wasted, right? He that the computation power he spends. So say he mines on top of my chain and he adds block number 6, but Poonam ma'am's chain is now at block number 8, and then people are continuing to build on top of it. So the effort of this miner actually gets wasted. So what essentially happens is with time, there emerges one chain that is the longest. And usually when this doesn't go on till say, I would say not more than 1 or 2 blocks, right? Maybe it was like, okay, there was one chain that was at block 7, there was block 5. There was say 2 chains that we had at block number 5, then one got at block number 6. The miner added block number 6 to one chain, then that's it. The other miner would most probably add a block to the chain that had block number 6. So yeah, that's how that works. So yeah, let me see how many questions. Oh, there are quite a lot of questions.
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah. So question is, if we can change address, how transaction balance can be validated? I don't know what you mean about this. If we can change address, it doesn't make a lot of sense. If we can change the address, how transaction balance can be validated? I'm sorry, I couldn't get the question. You can't change your address as such. You, for one private key, you have only one address. So you can't
Hello.
change that address. Yeah.
Hi, Arnav. This is Swati here.
Hi, Swati.
Hi. Arnav, I just want to ask you the answer you have given of the just right now question, that the whole meaning of this is that the person who is going to make a longest chain will be selected as a miner, means his chain, blockchain will be selected as a you want to answer like this?
Yeah. Along those lines, yeah. It's like you have to think from the miner's perspective. Like say, if one chain has 6 blocks and one has 5 blocks, right? There's a high chance that the 6th chain will eventually will be longer, right? And for new people who are just looking at the network, they look at, okay, we have this chain which is 7 blocks and there are 5. There's another one which has 5 blocks. So the Bitcoin protocol will automatically, adjust such that those people will mine on top of the longest chain.
Okay,
Yeah.
so
Hopefully that
basically,
answers your question.
okay, basically the criteria to choose the blockchain is the longest, or there are many other things also regarding this.
No, you. Yeah, there might be some small things, but so I
Hmm.
can just give you an example to explain this concept, right? So you might have heard that you would need 51%. If someone gets access to 51% of the hash power, um, then they basically control the chain, right? Like they
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
you might have heard about it. So why is that, right? Why do you need 51%, and what's the reason for that? The reason for that is if you have 51% of the hashing computing power, or say you have 70%, right? So what you can do essentially is you can create the longest chain. You can uh, you'll beat out almost every one in creating the longest chain. So, and the longest chain is the correct chain. So, and so say you everyone so let's consider a scenario in which you were at block number 5, and someone got, at that point only, someone had access to 70% of the computing power in the network. So what they would do is they increase that chain from block 5 to block 10 very fast. So other people who were working on the chain, they were just like, okay, they just they added only one block in that time. The other people, the longer chain increased till block number 10. So yeah, that's essentially what happens. They were able to the when you get access to such a high computing power, you are able to build out the longest chain. And I think, in fact, in the Bitcoin white paper as well, this is mentioned that the longest chain is the true chain. Um, and yeah, what is yeah.
Yeah, actually, I am a layman for this blockchain. So, who give the matlab, give the hash?
Sorry, you muted. You're muted.
I am sorry for this. I just want to know that actually I am a layman for this blockchain. So, I just want to know that who give the authority of this hash value? Means
No one gives the authority.
51%.
No one gives the authority. It's just
Okay.
if I have 10 computers and you have one computer, right? I
All
have 10
okay.
the hashing power as you. So
Okay, it
that's
depends upon the computation power.
yeah.
All right, all right. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for your
Okay,
answer. Thank you so much.
Sir, I have one question, Barkha this side.
yeah. Hi, Berka.
Sir, I just want to know, like, that Bitcoin started, right? So Bitcoin must be backed by something. There was one case study ki Bitcoin, they have purchased pizza. Some I have checked. So how they have created, there is some mathematical formula. Okay, I understand. Algorithms are there, I understand. But how? But how a coin is created and it is used as a currency? See, we are always going for RBI to give us notes. So how? See, we also earn. We do something and we earn. So how
Yeah.
Bitcoin is given to miners, right? But how it is backed by some currency, it's either US dollars or.
I got your question. Okay. Yeah. So how does anything have value? You have to think about this. Why do you think that rupee has value? Why do you think dollar has more value than rupee? It's just that other people believe that they have value. Okay, they believe that this rupee, the value in rupee is because of the government's ability, the military. If everyone is going to pay taxes, you have to pay taxes in rupee, right? Like if you are in the Indian economy, you are earning in rupee to pay taxes in rupee, and if you don't, they'll put you in jail, right? You can't do anything or whatever. But so, and why does gold have value, right? Like you have to remember, gold. No one says gold has value. Gold has value because gold is limited in supply, and it has been used for so many years. So that's the similar case with Bitcoin. If people believe Bitcoin has value, then Bitcoin has value. It's just this is something that I think everyone who gets new into the space, there's so much happening, right? You have to study of economics, you have to some psychology, some law and stuff like that. This is more on psychology aspect of things, like why does anything have value? And anything has value because other people say it has value. Why do you think diamonds are valuable? Because people believe they are valuable. It's not like we have a god that says, okay, this is valuable. And why is rupee valuable? It's by force. It's by the government says we believe the government and stuff like that. So and we have to use this for doing transactions. You can't use dollar, right? The government says, okay, within India, if you have to do a transaction, you can't use dollar. There are certain restrictions for that. So that's by force. That's the value of fiat currency. That's by force. And so the pizza example. So imagine like, okay, it was in 2010 or 11 when that thing happened. So back then Bitcoin was not that valuable. So what was happened was someone found a pizza shop owner or something, and they were like, okay, they convinced them, okay, Bitcoin is valuable. And Bitcoin is valuable to an extent because you need to spend energy to create Bitcoin, and Bitcoin supply is limited. It's 21 million. It has a proper monetary supply system, and it's you can read it out. It's all open source. You can verify it. You can check that out. No, if someone makes changes to the code, everyone can see that. So that's how Bitcoin derives its value. And for the pizza example, it was like, okay, when someone is going to pay, someone convinced pizza shop owner that I'll pay you in Bitcoins if you give me pizza, and the pizza shop owner believed that Bitcoin had value. So that person ended up paying like 10,000 Bitcoins, right? Which was, I'm sure he's very famous in the Bitcoin industry. We have a Bitcoin Pizza Day as well, in which we celebrate that. And if that person hadn't spent, like, I don't know, 10,000 Bitcoins is some millions of dollars, right? Right now. But yeah, that's how it was. It has value. And yes, people are asking how you can convert dollars, cryptocurrency and stuff like that. So you can convert, maybe say, if you can send me some cryptocurrency, say if I believe, so I'm always open to buying cryptocurrency, right? I have majority of my net worth in cryptocurrency. So if you're interested, I'll buy it out, right? If you have Bitcoin, I'll send you money in rupees and we can adjust on some price and I'll buy it out. But what most people do is they buy it on these. So this method is sort of like barter. It can't be scaled up, right? What most people do is they buy that through these. There are these centralized exchanges in which they have these order books. So it's something like stock in that sense. What these exchanges do is they connect you with a buyer and a seller, someone who wants to sell, someone who wants to buy, and they agree upon a price, the market price. The market dictates the price, and you can use that to buy. So as I mentioned, I don't know if you saw that, Amrita, if in India you can buy using WazirX is one exchange, such exchange, and there are couple of exchanges. UnoCoin is one exchange. Initially we had ZepPay, CoinX, Indian buying.
Okay, thank you, Arnam. I think we'll break for lunch here because we have to join for the next
Indian
session
ecosystem,
after lunch.
ecosystem was quite active.
Hello.
Yeah. Okay.
No,
Okay, ma'am.
I think we are going to break here for lunch. Yeah, we are going to break here for lunch, and the remaining queries will be taken up in the next session. So I request all participants. Arnav will be with us for the next session as well. So yes, we'll again meet at 2:30 after lunch break. So thanks Arnav a lot for this insightful into Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, and everything related to this integration of blockchain and crypto. So that was a wonderful session from. So we'll again, we'll again see you after lunch. So you have a break, and then we'll meet after around 2:35. We will start the session. So I request all of you to please be connected by 2:30. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll just a small note. I'll for the next session, I can, I think there are some questions definitely that people have. So for the initial, 15-20 minutes, I'll just answer questions and stuff. I don't have that much material.
Yeah, that will be great. In fact, we will have a question answer round from Arnav at the start of the session. So all of you please be connected around 2:30. So we will start for 15-20 minutes. We'll be talking with Arnav. Thank you so much.
Okay. Take care.
them that can we do the session like this, waiting for their approval. So now because this Bitcoin in India they made